Axis Mundi, the world tree, connects the many layers, worlds, and facets of our universe. The lower world of watery roots provides access points to deep self-knowledge and the realms of those who have come before us. The midworld of earth and form holds humanity and all physical things, a bridge where connections emerge. And the upper world, billowing in its airy canopy, expands with spirit and the magic of source. Traveling these roads of the Axis Mundi is you, a fiery spark of conscious life. Through this podcast, we meet beyond time and space to explore the information found along the vast arterial pathways of the universal Axis Mundi. In each episode, follow your unique compass through this journey of self-knowledge, taking what resonates and leaving the rest. My name is Meg Bartlett, and this is the Axis Channel. Hey there, welcome back to the Axis Channel. My name is Meg Bartlett, and today we are talking about parallel universes and parallel timelines and what it feels like to be in a convergence of two of them. So this is something that I actually personally experienced last weekend. It is the first time, and I don't know if it'll be the only time, maybe not, but it was pretty wild. So we're going to get into that, and I'm just going to share my experience with you because I think it was so fascinating and so weird. Like that's the thing. It's too weird not to share, sort of thing. My husband was there with me too. And he also was like, okay, there is definitely something really weird going on here. My family members also heard the story and everyone's like, okay, that's like creepy weird. Like it's really weird. So we're going to dive into that. But before we get to there, I just want to say thank you so much to every single person who has reached out to me after the first episode, commenting on my own galactic origin story. And I'm so grateful that it resonated with so many of you. And I knew the episode would find the people that it needed. And if you listen to it at a later date, then you're listening to it at the right time. It's just been so impactful for me to hear your stories and just really know that this is meaningful to you. So thank you so much for reaching out and sharing that with me. I also want to talk about how we can sort of get to know our own galactic origins before we dive into the whole parallel universe thing. So the first thing that I would tell you, and this is also something that I found myself saying often last weekend. So every time when I go to these fairs or do these events, I end up coming up with new knowledge and new phrasing for myself, right? I'm constantly learning and applying that information. And I'm really glad that I came across this phrasing. So when I was talking to people, I was saying my purpose, as I want to define it in this moment, is that I want to share the information of my soul. I want to broadcast this. I want to put this information out there so that you can determine, number one, if it resonates for you. And if it does, great, then you can continue down that avenue. You have something to explore. It can open up things within yourself, like this is for you. And if it doesn't resonate, I'm still doing my job because I'm helping you with your process of elimination. I'm helping you identify, okay, I've been exposed to this thought or this concept or this story. It doesn't resonate with me. Let me pivot and find what does. So I can help you check off your own list and you can continue to figure out what resonates for you. Finding your resonance is the key to all of this, to all spiritual work, right? When people talk about tapping into their intuition and, like developing their gifts or the clairs or, any of these things, any modality, it's really just understanding your own resonance. Who are you? Where have you come from? What is your soul? Why are you here? It's answering the big questions, but you are the only person that can answer that for yourself. So when we talk about galactic origins, I can share my story with you and I can share the broad perspective of what many of you may have experienced in that other existence, but it's up to you to truly define what it is for yourself, and only you can do that. So there's a couple of different tools that I've used to get my own galactic information, but mostly it's just I have a thought and I feel into it and I follow the thread and then I see that it really, really resonates with me. So first of all, I would suggest looking at your dreams. So I am a dream interpreter, but also dreams are a very expansive exploration of your own internal conversation. Most of the dreams that we have are psychological in nature, but once you start to process those psychological dreams, and once you really start to recall your dreams, you open up the avenue for more of those spiritual or etheric or astral types of dreams to come through, the extra stuff, right? This requires a level of self-awareness, though. You really have to know who you are and be willing to process all of the things that come up in your life so that you can open space for this extra spiritual stuff to come through, right? But like 3D existence, you gotta live in this first, sort of thing. One of the tools that I suggest to my dreamers is the gravity scale. And the gravity scale is just a number that you circle in the corner of your dream journal. So every dream that you fill out, I ask people to listen to their own internal gravity, and on a scale of 1 to 5, annotate where this dream sits. So if you wake up from a visitation dream and you truly believe that grandma was visiting you in the dream space, like this was an actual connection, communication with her spirit, that's going to be that 5 out of 5, right? That's going to be like a really impactful gravity, just a dream with a lot of weight behind it, right? A lot of spiritual weight. If you have a purely psychological dream, like, oh, I'm looking for a bathroom and I can't find one, then that's, like that 1 out of 5 sort of psychological dream. One of the dreams that might be in the middle is if you find yourself in a psychological dream that then turns into a spiritual dream, or if you feel like there's a character that interrupted a dream, but that definitely brought you a message from something etheric or astral or just outside of the normal psychological experience. It can have a ton of different definitions for that. But dreams are a great avenue. So once you start handling all of the psychological stuff, which is just, you're just interested in yourself. You're interested in observing your own internal conversation. You're interested in your dreams. Showing your dreams that you're interested in them is a really great way to get started. And that can really start to bring in some of these dreams where, you find yourself in a different form. You find yourself in a different body, an alien body, or, something extraterrestrial. You might find yourself in a different world, on a different planet, having a different experience. And all of these things can kind of be clues to understanding who you are. When you wake up from those dreams, I suggest sitting in meditation with them and seeing, okay, was this something that my brain created? Is this more of a message coming from somewhere? Or is this a part of myself that I might be allowing myself to be exposed to? Is this information that I'm bringing in for a purpose or a reason? So dreams are a great avenue to get started, just paying attention to your dreams and seeing what comes through, and then reviewing them and seeing what resonates with you. Another avenue I would suggest is active and imaginative meditation. So your imagination is half of the spiritual puzzle. There's a lot of people out there who say, oh, it was just your imagination. You just made it up. But that's like a really great thing. You have an imagination for a reason. Your imagination helps you to create and see more than the world around you. Everything's made up anyways, right? So when we think about the active imagination, it's really important to use it, and it helps you to meet spirit halfway. So when I begin a meditation, if I'm looking for answers to something, if I'm looking for knowledge, if I'm looking for my own soul information, I use my imagination to jumpstart the spiritual process. So it's kind of like, I'm revving the engine of a car, but the car can't move until it gets some momentum, right? And so I start the car, which is I use my imagination. Usually I like to envision myself as a bird or an eagle, and I'll just imagine what it's like to fly. And I'll take off and I'll soar over some places and I'll pull in a couple of other pieces. And then I'll find myself, okay, now I'm in an updraft. And now spirit is sort of, laying the stage because I got that momentum going. And now they're able to take me through into some sort of a vision or a journey or some sort of really visualized meditation experience. So these can be really great tools because you're conscious while you're having them, right? But also it's just explore what it might be like to live on an alien planet. When I say, what is it like to live on an alien planet? Everyone listening to this podcast is going to have a different answer for that. Everyone is going to have a different piece of imagery that pops up for them. Why does that imagery pop up for you? Why do you think about the planet this way? Why do you think about the beings that live there in this context, right? Like these are the questions that you can start to ask yourself. The other thing that I would suggest is just, do your research. Like we have so much available for us today over the internet. Like it's kind of ridiculous, right? Like the amount of information that's out there. So if you have a star or a system, or if you've come across and researched, like just type into Google, like some sort of star seed or I don't know, galactic origins, and look up stuff like that. If you just type in something and if something really resonates with you, go down the rabbit hole. Explore it a little bit more. Be curious about yourself. And you might start to feel some of these pieces and bits of information coming to you. You might blurt something out randomly, write it down, like write down all of the things that you come across. But really exploring your own galactic origins is just exploring yourself, right? And finding what resonates for you. So how to come into your own galactic information, be curious about yourself, use visualizing meditations. Get curious about your dreams, get curious about you, just see what comes up for you, see what resonates, listen to your internal core as you're looking stuff up online, and just see what comes up for you. That's really the best method. And only you can tell yourself what your own experience is. Okay, let's get into some crazy parallel timeline shit. So last weekend was really, really interesting for me. And I don't normally have the experience leading up to. So there's both a before the event, the fair that I vended at, and then there's during the event, and then there's after the event. And we're going to talk about all three of these because I think it's just, I don't know, maybe this will be really validating for someone, but also I just got to get this out. So before the event happened, I had this really sinking feeling in my stomach. Like something was just not right. Something was dissonant. Something was like oil and water, two very different substances. But it was just interesting. I was having like, I don't know, just like my gut was clenching and I had this sinking feeling and I had the anxiety starting. But I've done so much work with myself at this point that I knew it wasn't me feeling the anxiety. It was just the situation that I was about to walk into felt dissonant. It felt anxious. It felt weird. It felt really fucking weird. So I, like a couple of days before the event, I'm kind of psyching myself. I'm like, oh my God, is something really bad going to happen here? I don't know, just like the craziest shit going to happen? Are people going to be, not great people at this event? Is this just going to be difficult? I don't know. But also before this event, I had kind of had a bad feeling about the headliner for this event, and not like this person is bad, just like I had a weird dissonant feeling about it. So I had done some research on this individual, and I'm purposefully not including some of these details, right? This individual is supposedly very big in their field. And when I reached out to my personal friends in the same field to see if they had known of this person, no one had ever heard of them. And they're supposed to be like the most well-known individual in the United States in their modality. And none of the people that I personally know who operate in that modality had heard of them. So that's really weird right off the bat. I also had not heard of them. Then on their website, because I was kind of doing a deep dive beforehand, right? Like trying to learn more about the event that I'm walking into. And all of their images were AI. So I couldn't really find an image that was like an actual photo of this individual. So that was pretty weird, right? And then there's just like every time I tried to play a video of them or, like hear an interview that they had done, either my computer would stop working, the internet went out in our house at one point and we had to restart it. And it was just like I kept being swiped away or, like it kept just not working or it kept failing and it was keeping me. I felt like I was being prevented from learning more about this individual. And I was like, that is so strange. There is a really weird feeling I have about that. So going into this event, I didn't even know if the headliner was a real person. And they might not be in my timeline. So this was like so bizarre. So the day of the event, my stomach is in knots. I'm really just anxious, trying to calm myself down, like trying to bring in the nervous system and just say, hey, we're going to be okay. I know that, and I felt very strongly that I needed to be at this event, regardless of how dissonant it felt. I had a purpose in being there. And I knew that without a doubt. And my guides, my angels, my ancestors, all the people in the house, right? Like everybody's with me. And I knew that there was a purpose for me being at this event. I didn't have to, but I knew that there would be something that I could do that would be really beneficial, or, something that would come into my life that would be really good if I did. So I go to the event, and it is a really interesting dynamic. The headliner individual was the only individual selling items. And I hadn't realized it until I walked in, but all of the other individuals were local readers, okay? Readers only, not selling items. And this individual was from another state, and they were selling items. And it felt like by the end, and this is in my own perspective, right? It felt like I was kind of being used to bring people in to buy their crystals, their items, their spiritual tools. And yes, I also was getting a benefit, right, by being a reader here. But there was just something really, really weird about the setup. And it just, and you'll kind of get this in a second here as well. So the first day, I'm really sitting in the space, and I notice that something just does not feel right. And I see the headliner, but I never talked to them the whole weekend. I still, at the time of this recording, have not even spoken to the headliner of the event that I vended at, right? So that's just kind of fun. Like, we just never crossed paths. We were always, busy with someone else. There was just never a chance for us to interact. And I kind of felt like I didn't want to. It was almost like, okay, you're over there and I'm over here, and we're just totally different, like just totally different resonances, totally different frequencies. We're just on a different, like a different timeline. It was so bizarre. This whole weekend, though, I felt like there was this energy suck, almost like a sand trap or like quicksand or something like that in the space that I was in. But come the second day, we really get into the different timelines. There's a woman who approached me who had been waiting for 10 years for someone to say the word galactic at this event. And in my introduction, I introduced myself as a dream interpreter, an oracle, and a galactic historian. That's most recent. And she has been coming to these events for 10 years. And so I was like, oh, have you gone to any of the other events in the Twin Cities? And she looked me dead in the face, and she said, there are no other events in the Twin Cities. There's not really a big spiritual community here. I've been looking for them. And I, like, my stomach dropped. I was like, there is a huge spiritual community here. I am in so many fairs and events all the time here. Like, I have a whole events page on my website. Go here, and like look up the events that are coming, like, here's where I'm going to be. You should try out these other places. You should get out there. Like, there are people talking about this. It's very, very vibrant. And she just felt like there just hadn't been any of that. Like, she had been in this one fair for 10 years and hadn't gone to another one. And that blew my mind. But she wasn't the only one. After that, there were so many other people that came up to me and said some version of that they had been coming to these events for years, that they didn't know about any other, none, spiritual events in our area. And like, I am in the community, and there are a ton of events all the time. I don't do them all, like that sort of thing. So this was like so bizarre to me. And I was like kind of freaking out. I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Now, the next layer of this is that I gave a talk on dreams, and there were about 30 to 40 people in the room, which is awesome. And I'm talking to people about dreams. Everybody loves the talk. We're all jazzed, like good energies flowing everywhere. And at the end, there were a lot of people that stopped and said, oh my gosh, that was so great. Are you going to be back for the next of this fair series in May? And I said, no, I won't be able to make it that weekend. I'll be at Arta Whirl. Now, Arta Whirl is the largest independent artist fair in the United States. There are over 1,200, sometimes over 1,600 independent artists in Northeast Minneapolis that attend this fair, or that vend this fair, right? Like, they're actually showing and displaying their art and their performance and their craft and all of that And then there's over 40,000 people that attend. So like it takes over all of Northeast Minneapolis. There is literally a map that is printed out that tells people where artists will be, like which artists are where and in which building in the city. And so it takes over breweries and it takes over restaurants and it takes over, all of these warehouse buildings, and people just fill it with art for a whole weekend. And this is like a big event. Like this is a big event. Every single person in my timeline knows what this event is. When they were asking me where I was going to be that weekend, why I couldn't come to the next of this, fair that I was in, the next series of this fair, and I said I was at Art-A-Whirl, not a single person in that room had heard of Art-A-Whirl, and they live in Minneapolis. Like even people that live in Northeast did not know what that was. And that sealed it for me. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like this is so bizarre. And so, I'm texting my friends, I'm texting my family. I'm like, these people don't know what Art-A-Whirl is. And they were like, where are you? Like what planet are you on? That is so bizarre. It was completely insane. And so at that point, I was like, okay, there's something bigger here. There's something happening. What is going on? And I realized that every single person who came to my table that sat down with me, we discussed a dream, or I pulled some oracle cards, or we just had a good conversation. They then, after speaking to me, would pick up and they would go sit next to someone that I knew I didn't resonate with. Or they would go sit at a table with someone that I felt like I was a completely different substance from. And I believe the whole point of this was to expose this almost stuck group of people to a different possibility. And then it's up to them if they wanted to follow that and explore it more. So I am very curious to see which of those individuals come to some of the fairs that I have on my events page. And I hope that they can load my events page. I hope it works. But it was just so bizarre. So that's kind of the overview of everything that was happening. Internally, my body was going haywire. It took so much physical effort for me to remain in that space that weekend. And for some of you, this might be TMI. For me, it's not. So just deal with it. So first of all, Saturday morning, I was on my period and I was in the middle of a really heavy flow. 2 hours into this event, it totally stopped. Just like that. So number one, I'm under a lot of stress. My body is under physical stress being in this space. I have never had that happen during one of these events before. I do not get stressed at these events. Of course, there's a little bit of anxiety leading up to it, right? Like I'm really putting myself out there and this is an exchange and, there's a lot of that, but I've never had this type of a reaction before. Then my gut started acting up. Now, when I was in the military, I used to have IBS due to the levels of stress, right? And so when we talk about like the sacral area, this is where our creation center is. This is also where our solar plexus is, right? Like this is all of the root stuff, the self-identity and all of those things, right? And so this is a very sensitive area, but also your gut is like a second brain. And it can really tell, when people say like you had a gut feeling about it, or, ooh, I felt it in the gut, or my gut was sinking, like your gut tells you what it knows about the energy of the space around you. And my gut was in knots all weekend. It was hard for me to eat. It was hard for me to drink. I was just really in a lot of pain, and it got worse and worse and worse until finally on Sunday, about a half hour before the fair ended, I just could not take it anymore. I was like, I have to leave early. I am literally so exhausted and my stomach is cramping so hard. I have to leave. And there's nothing physically wrong with me, right? Like today I'm fine, but it was just so physically tolling on my body. So we left the fair. I'm processing everything that's happening. I'm like, oh my God, okay, that was really hard on my body. That was really hard to just be in the space that was so dissonant, but there absolutely was a purpose. And it was for me to show up and expose these individuals to another possibility, to another timeline possibility. But when I tell you, like, I can't even put into words how crazy it was to be in that space, to meet people who live in the same community that I do. And we just have total different experiences. And it's fascinating. And the last part that really made me just twist like my gut just twisted when I thought of it, was these people who have been coming to this fair and this fair only for years, they have only been getting their spiritual tools from this one individual. And that was really weird. And you can think what you want on that. So for anyone listening to this who was a part of that fair, please know this is my own personal interpretation of the event. These are my own thoughts and feelings, right? Let me know what you thought if you were also there. But it was definitely, to me, it was absolutely wild. It was a wild time. So after that event, right, like I'm still processing what had happened there. I have a little bit more clarity. I'm like, okay, yeah, I definitely think this was two converging timelines. And it's interesting because I've had other friends reach out to me about some really weird shit going on right now. So I have friends who are like, things were just really weird today. There was just a lot of stuff that seemed like it didn't fit that was coming in, So if you are someone listening to this and there's a lot of, I don't know if this is just resonating for you, or if you're like, whoa, that sounds kind of like something that I'm experiencing right now, you are not alone. And it might be a convergence of timelines. And so whenever we talk about these big concepts, right, like there's no way for me to actually know that this was a convergence of timelines. I believe it was. But when I come across this, I'm like, okay, what is the purpose? So I would ask you, if this is something that you are also experiencing or have experienced, what was the purpose? What is the purpose, right? What did you learn from that? Do you think that there was something beneficial that you were able to bring to the table in that convergence, right? What was happening at the time? Now, we have a lot of really random stuff going on in the news right now as well. And this isn't going to be anything political, but there's a lot of stuff that's just sort of coming across where people are like, how can you actually believe that? And like people being so stubborn in their old ways of thought, but the timelines and the times are actually changing, right? Like we have to progress forward, and progression is change. So when we think about the whole purpose of being exposed to any piece of information, anything new, it's to change. And so we're in this time where we're asking people who are really stuck in their ways. And when people are stuck in their ways, right, it's just that they're afraid of change. And we can't blame them for that. Change is hard, but we can help them through it, right? We can help them to see that change can be better and that it's okay to not know how everything is going to turn out. But man, are we in the middle of some crazy change right now. So, just whenever you're listening to this, I'm sure you'll see it. But just look in the news. There's some crazy stuff going on. There's a lot of different conflicting almost feelings coming in. It seems like, one day the media will be pointing out this thing and then they'll take a totally different stance on it, right? And so it's like, okay, where am I in the political timeline? Where am I in the world timeline? What is going on? I don't honestly know, but it's just really fascinating to think about. So if you are experiencing something like this, you are not alone. And if you have any questions, please send them in. If you have any stories that you'd like me to share or anything that you'd like me to talk about in the next episode, I would absolutely love to bring that to the table. So if you are experiencing anything like this, let me know. All right, that's going to be it for today. Let me know what you think of this episode. It was pretty wild for me to experience all of this. I'm still kind of recovering from it, and I'm entering a series of fairs now. So I'm going to be at a lot of events, and I'll keep you posted on anything else that occurs if I see it again, or if any of those individuals show up, and I'll let you know sort of the feeling that I get from them if they want to be in this timeline or not. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week. See you next time. Bye.